everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another product review. And the item we have on the workbench today is an upper receiver for an AR-15, but this one obviously is different than the standard ones. This is the AR-57, and by that name you know we're going to be doing something interesting with this gun today and in this review. Ever since I got into ARs, I have been fascinated by how so many companies try to shove various cartridges into the AR-15 platform besides 5.56 and 2.23. Some of those calibers make more sense than others. But in today's video, as the name implies, we're going to be trying to shoot 5.7 by 28 through it. Essentially, it's a scaled down 5.56 cartridge that can be shot through a pistol. It's used in the FN P90 and the FN 5.7 pistols, amongst others. And you might notice the top of this upper has one of those FN P90 magazines attached. And these things hold 50 rounds. That is quite impressive. But because the magazine is on top of the barrel, when I put it on this lower, we're not going to insert a magazine through the mag well. That's actually where the cartridges eject. So this functions a lot different, and we do have to change out the buffer to make it work. Now, before I give you the close-ups of this product and go over all of its features and specs, you might notice I have another upper receiver just like it here on the workbench. And you might be scratching your head going, well, why is that? Well, in this review, we're going to go over all the ups and downs. It's going to be a very thorough review. And I want you to go on this journey with me because I'm going to talk about some terrible things about this upper and some great things. But I don't want you to think that I'm a hater or a shill. So I hope you watch to the end because we have so much to talk about. All right, so the first thing I want to do is adjust the camera. I want to give you some close-ups of this and talk about how it works. All right, so let's take a closer look at this AR-57 upper. As you can see, the rail is attached to the upper. It's monolithic, so we do have a free-floated barrel. It is not attached to this upper using a traditional barrel nut, so you can't replace it like you can other barrels on ARs. We do have some rail slots up here at the top, and the only thing that has been installed on this upper that is not stock are the backup iron sights. It does not come with a set, so if you want to run them, you will need to supply them yourself. We have some rail up here on the top, in the front, and on the bottom, so you could use a bipod or a light with it. The barrel is not threaded, but it does come with a built-in flash hider. That does look pretty good. And you got M-LOK slots here on the side and the bottom. When it comes to the bolt, there's no locking mechanism. This gun is direct blowback, or the upper receiver is direct blowback. And the bolt looks very different. Nothing on it rotates like a standard AR. And on the back, they have put the word up to let you know how to install it correctly. That is really important. And if you're not careful, when you're moving this upper around, when it's off the lower, this bolt can simply just drop right out. If you want to charge the weapon, the charging handle is here on the side, and you can simply pull that back. It does not use a standard charging handle. When it comes to the magazine, which I think is the most special part of this upper, you have a lever. It is ambidextrous. You can push this forward or backwards. And then you can simply lift off the P90 magazine. These hold 50 rounds, and they are very unique because the rounds will stack in the magazine this way, but they will feed this way. So when you do load them, you will notice the round that is next rotates. It's quite different. I think this is the only magazine in the world that kind of works like that. It's very fascinating. When you want to install the mag, you do need to make sure it lines up with the front of the rail. There's a little slot for it, and then the back you will have to push this lever in or out, install the magazine, and then let it go. It just doesn't pop in like you think it would. So when you install this on a lower receiver, there is a part you have to change out, and that's going to be the buffer. They do supply it. I'm not sure what the weight is. There's no markings on this, but it does feel a little bit heavier than your standard AR-15 buffer. So let's put this upper on this lower, and I'll show you something I have discovered about it. As long as you're using a mil-spec lower, it should fit. And I've noticed that when I install the front pivot pin, it's very loose. It's not a very tight fit. But when it comes to the back, when you put the takedown pin in, it definitely makes it a little bit more solid, but there is quite a bit of slop there. So let's go ahead and install this bolt. Once again, make sure we have the word up facing up. Install that bolt, and that's all you have to do to install this upper on this lower, and it should work. And when you fire it, the cases should eject through the mag well of the lower receiver. So in some ways, this gun will feel very familiar because of the manual of arms. The bolt release also works. Now, as I mentioned before, I do have another AR-57 upper here on the workbench. So we're about to take this one to the range. In fact, this was the first one that was lent to the channel, and we'll talk about why I have two in just a moment. So let's go to the range. Let's try out this upper receiver on this lower receiver. Let's find out how it works, how it shoots, and find out if it's accurate, and of course, if we have any problems. I guess there's going to be a little spoiler warning there. Yeah, we are. And that's why I have two of these. But once again, we'll talk about that in just a moment. So let's go to the range with the AR-57 upper and see how it shoots. And for a moment there, I thought the review was off to a great start. So before we talk about the issue we had, let's talk about how it shot. Actually, it felt very similar to an AR-15 in my shoulder, and it kind of surprised me simply because I thought a much smaller cartridge wouldn't hit as hard. But because the gun is direct blowback, you do feel it in your shoulder. It's still a very comfortable gun to shoot. I think I was expecting something closer to .22 long rifle though. But let's talk about the issue we had. Well, we got to a certain point in the magazine and then the round failed to extract. And then when the bolt closed, it tried to pick up the next round and it slammed that cartridge into the rear of the spent cartridge. And as you saw from what I showed you in the close-up, that projectile got pushed back into the case. So we had a stoppage. And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, maybe the round was just out of spec. Maybe we just had a slight issue. So hopefully it's going to clear itself. I was able to extract that case, and we're going to see if we can continue with this magazine and make sure that issue was just one time. And now it looks like we have a different issue. The rounds are being picked up out of the magazine, but they're not going fully into the chamber. It's going far enough forward that when I pull the trigger, the hammer drops, but because it's not fully in battery, the round doesn't detonate. So I'm starting to think that maybe the chamber is a little bit too tight, maybe it's getting a little bit too dirty, or possibly the ammunition is out of spec. So far I've been using American Eagle. And when it comes to that round in the chamber, let me drop it in there, and you can see it's not quite fully seating. It's almost in there. So that's what I think is happening. It's just not going all the way into the chamber. So I was able to, once again, extract that round. And this time, I'm going to change the ammunition type up. We're going to start using some FN 57. So hopefully that's going to clear this issue, because who knows, maybe this upper is ammo sensitive. So let's go back to the range and try again. And it looks like we might be onto something. Using the FN ammo, it ran great. And I got a pretty good group with it. I just need to adjust the sights a little bit. All right, so we finally got through with the first test, the first rounds. So now let's double the distance of this target, put another magazine of FN ammo through it, and just make sure it continues to work this well. And unfortunately, it looks like we're back to the old problem. And now it's even worse because those rounds are getting stuck in the chamber. I'm having a hard time extracting them. It got so bad, as you saw, I had to use the old mortar method. And I'm not really sure what's causing this. I'll tell you what my first thought was, is that the chamber is getting really dirty. I can tell you from behind the gun, I'm noticing that there's a lot of unspent powder coming out of the mag well, which maybe means that the chamber is not bored out correctly. And essentially, the bolt is opening too soon, some of the powder is not burning inside of the barrel, and we're getting a lot of fouling. And that could be causing this buildup of carbon and other particulate, and it's causing the rounds to get stuck in the chamber. But yeah, this is not turning out to be a good review. Well, let me tell you what I did. I came back here to the garage after that range trip, and I reported to you guys about it on the Texas Gun Vault 2 and the Texas Gun Vault 3, my behind the scenes channels. And if you're interested in checking those out, go take a look at the description below. And I try to have casual, light discussions about guns with all of you. Stuff that I don't think would work well here on the main channel. And over there, the company that makes this upper receiver saw what I said. Because I said, hey, I really want this to work well. It's not running right. And the company reached out to me and said, Jason, we know exactly what the problem is. The early barrel manufacturer that we were using was not properly making the barrels in spec. So we want to send you another one. So I gave him my address, and this upper receiver showed up. And I've heard online that they've had some quality control issues, but all of that has been ironed out. So now that's why I have two upper receivers. So far, they haven't asked for the original one back. So now that we have a new upper with a properly made barrel, or so they say, I want to go back to the range and try this whole thing again. So let's start from the top. Let's do the first shots through this, and let's make sure this AR-57 upper works. All right, and that is exactly what I was hoping to see. Yeah, this thing is awesome now. It seems to be running great. We had no issues. It ran like a top. Of course, we're going to have to put a bunch more rounds through it just to make sure that continues. But my comments with the very first test we did with the original upper still stand. The recoil impulse of this is actually a little bit heavier than I was expecting it would be. I kind of thought it would shoot like a .22 long rifle, but it doesn't. Maybe because it's direct blowback, it just hits a little bit harder, and the reciprocation of the bolt seems to be a little bit fast. I'm also very happy with its accuracy. So now I definitely think they've ironed out these problems. This thing is working great. Now, before we double the distance of this target and put more rounds through it, there are a couple people I want to thank. First and foremost is the owner of the original AR-57 upper, who lent it to the channel for review and donated some ammunition. He's a great friend of the channel. His name is Jack. So Jack, thank you again for all you do for the Texas Gun Vault community. And of course, I want to give a huge shout out to my primary channel sponsor, who provides a lot of the ammunition for these range reports and product reviews. You guys hear me talk about him. His name is Mark. He's the owner of an amazing grip company called Brownworks. And if you're in the market to upgrade some of your pistols like 1911s, Beretta 92s, CZ75s, go check out this amazing company. The grips he makes are absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. And a lot of the ammunition in this range report and product review was supplied by him. So I could not create this content without him. So please go support him, because he supports Second Amendment content creators. And when you place an order with Brownworks, please tell them the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so this thing is running great. So now let's double the distance of this target. Let's put a bunch more rounds through it and make sure it continues to run this well. And now we are having a lot of fun with this AR-57 upper receiver. It's functioning great, it's accurate, but there are two things about it you do have to get used to. Number one is the bolt release. After the last round in the magazine, it will not lock the bolt open because you're not using a traditional magazine. There's no upward force on that bolt release, but you can lock it open manually. And I do that from time to time. And you can release it with the paddle on the side. So that's kind of the same. The other thing you have to start getting used to is if you're standing over a shooting bench, you have a lot of cartridges coming out of this mag well, at kind of a higher velocity. It's definitely shooting them right out of this gun, and you might notice that some of them are bouncing back up. So I would definitely recommend shooting this away from a table or a bench. You kind of have to stand back. So depending on what the setup is at your range, if you have to be in front of a line, you need to be aware of that. It just kind of gets a little bit annoying when those cartridges are just bouncing everywhere. All right, so the next test I want to do is normally the last test I show you, the mag dump test. But in this product review, I want to show you everything I filmed in the order that I filmed it, and it will make sense towards the end of this review. So let's go back to the range, let's do the mag dump test, and hopefully I can dump one of these big 50-round mags really fast with no issue. And that definitely was a lot of fun, but also that was really expensive. If you know the cost of 5.7 by 28, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not like you're shooting 22 long rifle. It's really expensive just to get a box of 50. And one of these magazines holds 50 rounds. And you're putting it onto an AR-15, a platform that people want to shoot fast. So while it's a really cool idea, and so far it's performing great, it's definitely going to drain your pocketbook. And this might be the biggest downside to this upper receiver. But it ran great, and I'm glad we're having no issues with it. All right, so the next test I want to run is the quick magazine change and multiple target test. Now, as I showed you, changing the magazines out in this upper is actually a little bit tricky. There's a couple of extra steps you normally have to take. And because the magazine is on top instead of the bottom, that could slow me down as well. Yeah, you get 50 rounds in one of these, but if you have to change that magazine, can you change it fast? And in case you wanted to use this gun in competition, which I think would be a good option because it is very lightweight and very maneuverable, well, can I transition between targets quickly as well? So let's go back to the range, let's run this test and see what we discover. So let's talk about the positive first. This gun can be run fast and it's very maneuverable and very easy to keep on target. But now let's talk about the negative. The mag changes. Yeah, they are a little bit slow and cumbersome. But hey, these magazines do hold 50 rounds, so how many mag changes do you plan on doing? I actually think the most difficult thing about the magazine change is lining up the notch in the magazine with the front of the rail. If you miss that, you got to take the magazine off and try again. So if you were going to run this gun in competition or need to do a quick magazine change, that's something you're definitely going to have to practice. Now, at the end of that test, I want to talk about what happened. So far, the gun has been running great. We've had no issues. But the last round in that magazine, I thought we had a light primer strike, or maybe it just didn't extract because the gun didn't feel like it was supposed to. And then when I pulled the bolt back, I saw the round looked like it was in the chamber. I tried to close the bolt. Essentially, I let it slam home, and I thought the gun would go bang. But unfortunately, it didn't, which once again tells me that round is a little bit out of battery, or it's causing the bolt to be back just a little bit. So I don't know if this is just going to be one round or we're going to start to experience more issues. So we'll just have to see in the next test. And speaking of the next test, because this gun has been so accurate so far, now I want to take as much of the human element out of the equation as possible, and we're going to shoot this upper receiver from the bench and from a rest and just see what the best group I can get with it is. Well, that test got off to a rough start, but luckily we ended strong. And it seems like this upper suffers from the same problem the original one does, in that over time, as you shoot it and the gun gets dirtier, it really seems like it has feeding and extraction issues. So it makes me wonder, while this one was definitely more reliable, if there's still an issue with the design and the boring of the chamber. I really think that is the issue because nothing else is changing. I'm alternating ammunition and even alternating magazines. I'm pretty sure it has to do with either the feed ramps or the chamber. That's what the problem is. But luckily, as I said, we still got it to run. All right, so the next thing I normally film at the range is the opening shots. And if you're used to seeing my range reports, you guys know what this is. Essentially, it's looking at me front on as I shoot down range. And I use this footage always in the opening of the videos, but you might have noticed in the opening of this video, it wasn't there because yeah, I had an issue and I tried to film this a number of times. So let me show you my first attempt. And now we have another problem in the mix. Not only am I having a problem getting the bolt in the battery and extracting the rounds manually, now the trigger isn't working right. Why is that? I have no idea. I think it might have to do with the bolt geometry. I think it's actually pushing down on this hammer a little bit too far. I had to take the gun apart, I lubricated some things, I had to kind of work them loose, but I think I got the gun working like it should. So let me try to film these opening shots one more time. And yeah, we had some issues, and now it's even worse than it was with the other upper. This bolt won't even come close to going into battery. So I want to show you what I discovered. When I remove the bolt and the magazine, and I try to insert another round of 5.7, you can see it doesn't even come close to going all the way in the chamber. So that tells me there might be an obstruction. And when I discovered this at the range, I knew the tests were over because this could be dangerous. I had no idea what was in there. So I came back here to the garage, got out my endoscope for rifle bores. Let me insert it into the chamber there, and I'll show you what I discovered. And if I pull it out, you can see there's brass in there. Yeah, we have a ruptured case. And I talked about this on the Texas Gun Vault 3, and Matt from the Wyoming Gun Project said, it looks like you have a head spacing issue. That's what's causing it. So even though this barrel worked better than the original, I think they're both out of spec. And that is unfortunate, because this is a really cool idea. And I can understand why so many people would be interested in it, even though it is really expensive to run. I totally understand that this is a range toy. It's not really meant to be all that serious. But if you had something like this, you definitely want it to run well. But apparently there's some type of design issue here. And I really think it has to do with the barrel. So maybe 5.7 was never meant to be run in an AR. But when it ran, it was a lot of fun. So that's what I discovered. The good, the bad, and the ugly of the AR 5.7 upper. Is it a cool idea? Yeah. Does it seem to be well built? Yes. Is the barrel in spec? I don't think so. So that's everything I discovered about the AR 5.7 upper. It's a cool idea, but the execution might be a little bit poor. I do like it, and I wanted to go on this journey and show you all of the things that I was able to learn and film, because I don't want you to think I'm a hater and I don't want you to think I'm a shill. The one thing I pride myself on here at the Texas Gun Vault is I'm always honest. So I'm curious what you all think, and do any of you have one of these uppers and does it run well for you? So on my star system, how would I rate the AR-57 upper for an AR-15? Well, I'm only going to give it 1.5 stars out of 5. Yeah, in the end, it doesn't work. This one was on track to get a 4.5 star or 5-star review. It was running great. And then it was plagued by the same issues as the original. So I'm going to contact the company, see what they have to say, and who knows, maybe there is a fix for this. But if you guys can chime in and tell me what you know, it would really help. So, as always, thanks for watching.